Hey, all right, welcome to the Nerd News Desk. We are here today trying something a little different. As most of you guys know, I've been struggling for a long time trying to get live streaming to work correctly. I've been having lots of problems, lots of issues with the audio syncing with the video, trying to find a good time to do it, trying to find, different things. And you've probably also noticed that the background has changed. I'm in a different spot. I'm not at my desk. I'm actually upstairs in the bedroom. And the reason for this is I am homeschooling my son, and so I had to kind of change things up a bit because my desk was right next to where he was working, and that made it tough to do live streams because every time I wanted to stream, of course, he was working on school stuff, and it made it really tough. So I've moved up here. I've set up things so that hopefully the light is good, the color is good, hopefully the sound is good. I actually took a Castle Grayskull. Maybe I'll show this off someday. But I took a Castle Grayskull and I stuck a webcam in it and a microphone, and I've got a light sticking out of it. I've got the cables sticking out of the side. And so this is kind of like a little portable podcasting recording studio. So instead of doing it live, I'm going to record it and then upload it. So I can't do the chat feedback and that kind of stuff that I really liked doing, because that was one of the things about doing live is I liked the comments and the chat, responding to people. And since I really can't do that anymore, so instead, what I'm going to do is just try to do these more often. Now that I've found, I believe, a setup that works. I've been doing a lot of testing with the sound levels and the cameras and, a couple different cameras in different spots in the house and whatever, trying to find a spot that works right. And I think this is the one that's going to work. So we are going to try to keep pumping out videos the way we used to a while ago, and I just haven't been able to get the right mix of things working. There's a couple things we're going to talk about today there's a couple things we're going to talk about first, because I really want to talk about COPPA, or COPPA, or however you want to pronounce it. I think COPPA. Maybe it's... I don't know that it matters. It's not an anagram. It's the letters stand for something anyway. So it's not really a word. So I guess you can really pronounce it any way you want to. But COPPA, it's not the end of YouTube. It is not going to destroy everything on YouTube. And I see a lot of people with comic book podcasts and with toy podcasts and whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to destroy us, and we're not going to be able to do it anymore and whatever. There will be some issues, I think, with a couple of them, but for the most part, no, it won't be. And we'll talk about that a little bit, because I've been reading through the rulings, I've been reading through the FTC, what their actual complaint was and what was found to be true, and what YouTube actually got hit for, what YouTube has laid out for some of the things. And then, yes, there will be problems with some channels, but there are some things that have been going on that we will need to talk about as far as all of that goes. We're also going to take a look at some of the new comics coming out this week, which I haven't even looked at yet, which, in fact, I should probably pull that up and let that load in the background while we're talking about other stuff, because I don't even know what's coming out this week. And, honestly, I haven't read a whole lot the last couple weeks. We can talk about that, too, maybe, if we need to. And, I don't know, maybe we'll talk... I don't know if we'll talk about anything else or not. We might. We'll just have to kind of see. But, look, this is going to be the thing. I need you guys to leave comments or to tweet or email me, dirt@popculturenetwork.com or dirt@thepopc.net. That'll get to me also. Or dirt@dirtmound.com, if that one's easier for you. But anyway, send me an email, leave a comment. You can tweet. You can come to the official Pop Culture Network fan group. You can go to thepopc.net or popculturenetwork.com. It's the same website. We just have two URLs now. Popculturenetwork.com that we've always had, and thepopc.net, which is a lot easier to use. And you can leave comments there. We've got if you log in with Facebook, you can use Facebook to leave comments. So if you've got a WordPress account, you can leave comments on the post there. But as I get feedback from you guys and some of the things you want to talk about, those are some of the things I'm going to talk about. Okay, so now that we've wasted, almost 5 minutes? Really? Wow, okay, that's a longer intro than I expected. Nonetheless, here we are. Let's talk about COPPA. COPPA is not the end of YouTube. And I know people are going nuts, and they're like, oh my gosh, if I list my thing as being safe for kids and it's not, or I list it as not being safe for kids and they say it is, I'm going to be fined $40,000, and I can't get comments, and I can't get likes, and I can't get subscriptions, and whatever. Here's the deal. The actual complaint is twofold of some of the things that have been going on with YouTube. One is what's known as ElsaGate, which we'll talk about briefly. And then the second one is with the actual advertising. And those are two different things, but they've come together here in what YouTube is putting in with these new standards. So it's not 100% about COPPA, but that is a big part of it. For those of you that don't know about ElsaGate, basically, online sexual predators were using YouTube as a way to try to meet young kids. It was bound to happen eventually. There's lots of kids, so it's a place where they can talk and leave comments and communicate, and there you go. So the problem was they would go in and they would leave disturbing comments on the kids' videos. Kids who are in the videos, filming their videos, 8, 9, 10 years old, are getting these perverse, suggestive comments. But then there was also where the name ElsaGate came from is there were online animators and people who would make videos using characters like Elsa from Frozen, like Spider-Man, whatever, and they would be videos where they were having relations, I guess. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm not making a kid-friendly video. They were doing it. They were screwing. They were having sex. However you want to look at that. Since I'm not safe for kids on this channel, but they were doing those things. And so kids would click on this thing, seeing, Elsa or Spider-Man or whoever, and then suddenly they're getting this adult video. They were also doing things where they would put a thumbnail where it would look like a clip from Frozen, or it would look like, Elsa's fun party, whatever, and instead you're getting a video of a 60-year-old man getting a handy from a teenage girl. And they would do those kinds of things to try to lure younger kids in or make kids see it, so then they can, if someone leaves a comment, they can respond to it, whatever. Who knows? And part of it's, I guess, the thrill in their mind that they're sexualizing children and whatever. That was ElsaGate, and those types of things were happening on YouTube, and YouTube was having a hard time cracking down on some of that stuff. But then the FTC, their complaint was that there were channels aimed at kids that were specifically targeting young children that were, of course, collecting the targeted ads information. So they were finding out what's their ISP, where they, physically located, what are some of the stuff they're looking at. And cookies always leave it like a trail. That's why they're called cookies. They're like the crumbs that get left behind. You follow the trail of crumbs. So they would know what other videos they were watching, and they would know how long they were watching, and they were knowing what they would go watch next and what they were watching first and how many times they would rewatch it and things like that. And they were saying, of course, that's an invasion of a child's privacy. Child 13 years or less is actually blocked from those types of information gathering on the internet. And of course, someone sets one up in Uzbekistan. What can you do about it? You can't stop it. But you're Google, you're in California. There you go. They can do that. So the COPPA changes that are being made specifically as a result of that come from channels that are specifically targeting children. Now, what do we mean by specifically targeting children? Some of these channels are, it's a bright blue background, and you've got a toy right there, like a LOL surprise, or a pack of cards, or stampers, or something that is something that you would get a kid who is 5 through 10 years old, whatever, and they would open it up, and there'd be glittery, sparkly stuff, and look at the toy and hold it up to the camera and all of this stuff. And in fact, Killen and I were talking about this a couple of years ago, because there was a channel, it was like one of the top channels on YouTube, and it was just these hands that always have these painted fingernails opening the toys and talking to kids and has some sort of accent. Turns out it's like some Brazilian porn star that was running this channel, and she was making millions of dollars off the advertising and the kids watching it and whatever. And when you do the targeted ads and you're getting all of that stuff that it's not supposed to be allowed, that's a problem. So the channels that they're talking about are things specifically geared towards children. Now, I know there's been a lot of debate among certain content creators about what exactly counts and how do you determine if something is made for children or not. And in fact, YouTube has even said that they're trying to go through this process where they figure out, are you actually making stuff that's for kids, and saying not, and hoping that the kids are still going to come view it as a workaround to get behind it, or whatever. So some of the things here that we need to talk about here, determining if your content is made for kids. It says, are children the primary audience? So that's the first question. Are little kids the main thing, the main viewers that you're trying to get to? And are children not the primary audience, but the video is still directed towards children in one way or another? Okay, so obviously there's going to be standouts like South Park. South Park is not for kids. South Park has always attracted kids because of its cartoony style, but everybody at this point knows South Park is not for children, right? Like, little kids should not be watching South Park. We all know that. We understand that. It took a while for some parents to get that message, right? So even though it is kind of bright and colorful and it's animated, they can still clearly mark that it's not for kids. And all YouTube has to do is take a look at it and go, okay, obviously that's not for kids, right? So when they go to check, the algorithm will say this is actually kids content that they're saying is not for kids. They can check it. Okay, this actually is not for kids. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is that there is an appeals process. If they say this is for children, you say it's not, whatever. But they're trying to catch people using that as a workaround. Because there are going to be people that say, hey, my content's not for kids. Give me that advertising money. But then you look and it really is kids stuff. They're just trying to work around it. So deciding whether or not the channel is made for kids is based on different factors. Some of these come from YouTube. Some of these come from the FTC. They've kind of mixed them together because they want to play a little bit safer than what the FTC actually has. But these are the rules that they're going to have. So one, what is the subject matter of the video, right? Is it educational content for preschoolers? If it's a video teaching little kids ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, obviously that's for kids. That's not an adult video. So that is a kid's video. It will be treated as a kid's video. Whether children are your intended or actual audience for the video. And we'll use South Park as the example. Kids are not the intended audience. A lot of kids could be watching it, but if you mark it as it's not safe for kids, and somehow kids are coming around to the regular YouTube app and they're watching it instead of through the kids app, that would be an issue for blocking the material somehow from showing up when a kid goes on Google and tries to search or something like that. Whether the video includes child actors or models. If you've got a channel like Ryan's World of a little kid opening toys and playing with new toys and whatever, that's obviously going to be a channel that's for kids. That is not a channel for adults, unless they're the creepy Elsa Gate people we were talking about earlier. But obviously that's going to be a kid's one. Whether the video includes characters, celebrities, or toys that appeal to children, including animated characters or cartoon figures. So, using characters, celebrities, or toys. If you, and this has been the main sticking point for a lot of toy review channels. They go, look, I'm opening a Transformer, doing a review of a Transformer. Would a kid watch that? A kid might, but kids are not my intended audience. I'm not trying to make a kid's video. Well, that's not exactly what they're talking about, because it goes back to, if you look at the actual channels that the FTC was suing YouTube over, they were channels like the Hasbro channel, the Mattel channel. They were channels like Toy Scouter, I think is what it's called. There was the one with the lady with the fingernails. They were using toys as a way to attract children. So they weren't like reviews like we think of as like a That New Toy Smell review. It's not about like the history of the toy line. Like there's a great channel. It's of course now I can't think of it. It's a guy sitting on a stool and he tells you like the history of a toy line. A lot of dry humor. I enjoy it. I can't think of it right now. But regardless, a channel like that is not intended for kids. And when you look at it, it's not intended for kids. And the problem is people look at some of these factors and they go, well, look, I'm talking about toys. Kids might be the actual audience, but I don't intend it to be. Whether the language of the video is intended for children to understand. So if you're talking like Mr. Rogers to the camera, you're talking in that like, well, hello and welcome to the channel. And today we're going to, and you're obviously like a child's television star, then, that's going to factor into it. Does it include activities that appeal to children, such as play acting, simple songs or games, or early education? Whether the video includes songs, stories, or poems for children, any other information you may have to help determine your video's audience, empirical evidence of the video's audience. Now, here's the thing. None of these on their own are going to be the deciding factor. It's a combination, an amalgamation. It's these things working together. So if someone like Grimmy does a Transformer review where he rips it open and he shows it on there and he compares it to some of the others, he shows how it transforms, he does a review, he talks about, look, the arm goes up, the arm goes down. Someone like The Geek, when he was doing Formers Friday, opening up, showing you how it transforms, the way it looks, the way it compares to some of the other ones, the way some of the items might be interchangeable. Just because it's a toy and it's showing a toy doesn't mean it's being targeted by COPPA. It also depends on how's your thumbnail. Are you doing a lot of sing-songy stuff? Are you talking as if you're talking to preschoolers? Do you have the animated characters come on to talk to little kids? Like, it's a lot of stuff that goes beyond just one of these things or two of these things. There's a lot of stuff coming around. And again, going back to South Park and using that idea, it says whether children are your intended audience or your actual audience, if kids are the actual audience, but South Park is obviously full of swearing, and it's full of sexual innuendo, and it's full of violence, and it's not made for kids. Just because a lot of kids come to watch it doesn't then mean you've made a video for kids. Again, it's a factor of a lot of things mixing together. So all of these people who are freaking out about whether or not their stuff is going to be classified, well, this is going to be for kids and now I can't make any money off of it because it's a kids thing, even though I'm not making it for kids, they're overreacting because you're focusing on one part of what it says instead of the whole picture. Okay, now some people are just like, they don't want to risk it. They go, I can't take the chance. If they hit me with a $40,000 fine, what am I going to do? I can't pay it. Okay, well, here's another thing. It's not necessarily a $40,000 fine. The fine is going to be based on the reach of the video. It's going to be based on how blatantly you're trying to target towards children. It's going to be based on how many times you've done this before. If someone sets up a channel and they put a bunch of kid videos, they say it's not for kids, so that they can get kids to come watch it on the regular YouTube app instead of through the kids app, and they're getting all this targeted stuff, and the FTC comes in and sees it, and they shut it down. YouTube cuts it out and blocks your account, and then you open a second channel, and you do it again. You upload new videos, and you say it's not for kids, but it is for kids, and so it's getting kids to come in and watch it, and again, you're trying to gather up all of that. Those factors will play into how much you get fined. It's possible you may get fined nothing. It's possible that they may say this video violates the terms, we're not going to allow it. They could cut it off, and there's no fine involved at all. So you're not necessarily going to get fined $40,000 just right off the bat because of some mix-up on whether or not you made a video about Jace and the Wheeled Warriors, and now suddenly they think it's got to be for kids. If you do a toy video on something like the Muppets, and you've got no swearing, you obviously put the Muppets in the thumbnail, You're showing off the toy. That may look like it's something that attracts kids. But if you're talking more in a scholarly manner about the history of the line, this is a review of the toy, this is how it works, it's information for parents, it's not directed at kids, it's directed towards an adult collector and not a child. Those are factors that are going to play in your favor, where you're going to go, look, this isn't meant for kids. Yeah, it's got the Muppets in it, but it's not a video for kids about the Muppets. It's about the history of the Muppets, or it's about this new Muppet toy, or it's about, my favorite parts of the Muppet TV show, whatever. It's not aimed at children because of these other factors. That's going to play into it as well. So, again, people are freaking out, and it's not going to be directed towards them. Now, if a billion people leave YouTube over this because they're like, I can't take it, and they're not going to make the content anymore, then, that sucks, but that's your decision, But for the average person, and here's the other thing, a lot of the rhetoric has gotten so bad. I had someone contact me, and he's like, hey, I'm worried about this. I'm afraid they're going to shut down my channel. It's like, well, what's your channel? And his channel was, he did like... now I don't remember what it was. It was like how to repair arcade machines. And it's like, well, that has nothing to do with it. That's, it's like, well, kids like to play video games, and it's a video game. It's video game cabinets, arcade cabinets, so it might be a kid's thing. It's like, no, like, dude, it's not directed towards you because that's one factor. Yes, kids like video games. And so arcade cabinets you can play video games on, but that's not what the law is talking about. That's not what the new rules are designed for. That's not what they're saying. For someone who's like, say, Disney, all right, Disney XD, the Disney XD channel. It's full of clips from cartoon shows. Hey, guess what? You're a kid's channel. Like, Disney XD is obviously going to be a kid's channel. So, therefore, the Disney XD videos, you can't put on a playlist, you can't leave comments, you can't put the targeted advertising on. Disney XD is going to lose some money off of the stuff that they have sitting on the YouTube channel. That's how it goes. That's kind of actually what it's designed for. Because they are obviously running a service directed at children. They cannot have that targeted advertising. They can have normal, untargeted advertising that is age appropriate. They're not going to make the same money they did before off their YouTube channel. Someone who does kid songs, and it's like, if you've watched like the Disney Channel, or if you've had kids and you've grown up, Imagination Movers, some of those people, the Wiggles, right? You'll see a lot of times there are people selling the CD, and they've got a commercial on the Disney Channel or wherever, and they're like the Wiggles, but like from your hometown, right? Like, they're not quite the same quality. They don't have a TV show or anything, but they make these silly songs, and they're for kids to sing along and whatever. You put your videos on YouTube, you're going to lose out on that targeted advertising because your videos are for children. And they go, well, that sucks. I'm not going to make the money anymore. Well, guess what? You weren't supposed to in the first place. There were supposed to be things blocking kids from being targeted by that advertising, by getting all those statistics. They will cut that out. You won't make as much money. Guess what? It happens. It's a correction. It's not being taken away. They're fixing the glitch. Okay, Milton is not getting a paycheck. That's how it goes. And I know that you're going to say, well, it was great. YouTube was a way I could make all this money. And there are problems with YouTube. Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving a blank slate to YouTube and saying that everything that YouTube has ever done has been great. And every decision that they make is fantastic, and that YouTube Rewind is always the best video every year. No one believes this stuff. No one believes that's true. But what I am saying is right here specifically this: you should have never been making what you were making originally, doing kid songs and kid videos and silly sing-alongs and having kids open toys and review them online, it never should have been where it was. And the thing is, there are channels that you can go out and search for, and this is, again, something Killen found because his kids were watching a lot of YouTube. My kids weren't really into it as much, but that was 10 years ago or whatever. For him, it was a couple years ago. But for his kids, they would want to grab the tablet and go to YouTube and start looking through stuff. And there were channels set up by these Chinese server farms that were just stealing videos from other channels, putting them onto their channel, and then serving up ads. And getting all of that ad revenue back from them. And they were just these automated server farms that were putting together these channels. So, that's also part of what's being directed by this. So, yes, there are some channels that will face very real problems because they do make stuff for kindergartners and preschoolers and whatever. And technically they should be. They never should have been to the point where they were. But for your average toy reviewer, a channel like GameSack that does videos about video games, those are not directed towards children, and there's a lot of stuff about the way that they're set up and they're presented that makes it obvious that they're not for children. And so that makes it clear that that's not what this is even talking about. So I hope that clarifies for a lot of people. I hope that you can understand what's actually being talked about here. I don't I don't want to feel like I'm being unsympathetic to a lot of creators. There are some creators that have attempted to make stuff that's for kids and adults, and they want it to appeal to both audiences because they knew it would get a wider reach. And now they're going to have to change. Either you go for the kids that you were wanting to talk to, and you lose out on some of that stuff, or you keep it for adults and you're no longer reaching to the children. It's tough. What I can suggest is if you're really that worried about it, you need to get your own domain, go start a Vimeo channel, point your domain towards the Vimeo channel, and start plastering that URL everywhere, and let people know, come to the Vimeo channel and watch stuff there, because Vimeo also does some sort of advertising that you can mix in with that, and you can embed it on your website and run other ads, other stuff like that. So if you want to set up your own website and have advertising there, you can do that. But as far as, within YouTube itself, it's really not going to be the end of, it's not the end of toys on YouTube. It's not the end of video games on YouTube. It's not the end of comic books on YouTube. I mean, obviously you can look up here. I put this comic book frame around me from this old Golden Age public domain comic because I like comic books and I wanted to have something that looked, comic-y in there. But even though I've got that on there, I'm not making a video directed towards children. I'm not speaking like I'm speaking to a preschooler. My thumbnails are not, made with the big toy front and center, and then like bright blue or bright green or bright pink behind it to draw everybody's attention to it. I'm not doing that, so it doesn't apply to videos like this, and it's not going to apply to the majority of videos out there. Now, It will suck for a while as people kind of figure out where stuff is going to fall. It is going to make a difference. If you're doing collections of Fortnite clips, is that going to count for little kids? It shouldn't, because of the violence. The game is not, I don't know, Fortnite's not E for everybody, right? I don't know, because I know Fortnite is, supposedly cancer. Fortnite rating. Fortnite, it's rated T for teen. Okay, so right there. If you do a bunch of Fortnite clips, you're rated T for teen. You are not rated for kids. So therefore, even though it's a video game, it's not kids content. So again, I don't want to sound unsympathetic to people who do make kid stuff, that make kid videos. If Mr. Rogers were alive today and had a YouTube channel, he would start losing out on some of that money. But at the same time, it shouldn't have been there in the first place because of those privacy rules that were set up. It shouldn't have had the targeted advertising. And so it's a course correction for that kind of stuff, as opposed to something that's going in and shutting things off and taking things away. So, but as far as not getting the comments, not getting like the playlists and stuff, that was because of the ElsaGate stuff, not necessarily because of the COPPA stuff, but they've put it all together. Since they're making changes, you put all the changes together and you do them all at once. And so that's why some of that stuff is included, because of the creepy online sexual predators that the kids have to deal with. So if anyone has any other questions, because I really did a deep dive into this a while ago, and I admit that it's been a couple weeks, and I know that there's a lot of talk that's been made. These are supposed to go into effect, I believe, at the 1st of January. So in the beginning of January is when you're going to see real changes taking place, but people are acting preemptively in a lot of ways. But if you have anything specific that you're worried about, or if there's an aspect to it that you're not clear on that I didn't clarify, because I know I spoke in circles a lot, kind of going back to some of the same stuff over and over as those arguments wove through there. If there's something, let me know. Let me know, and I'll look into it, and I'll do the best I can to figure out the information. But for right now, it's not the apocalypse. At least not for most people. All right. So determining if your content's made for kids. Okay, no personalized ads, info cards, whatever. All right, let's take a quick look at some of the comics coming out. Now, one thing I do need to set up, and I will admit I haven't done it today, is screen sharing some of this stuff in between. I have one laptop that I look stuff up on, another laptop that's recording, so that when I'm doing stuff, it's not going to mess up the recording or anything like that. So I got to figure out some way to do that, or maybe get the images in advance and throw them in so we can pop them up on the screen. Do something, the way I can throw up, something like this, or something like this. I've got to work out some way to get the information up there so you guys can see it. But for right now, I'm thinking I'm doing this more thinking as it's like a radio show, and there just happens to be this video element to it. But this will be put out as an audio podcast, so the people watching audio, you're not losing out a whole much. As I take a drink here, which you couldn't see happen, you just knew it got quiet for a second. But regardless, all right, comics coming out this week. I always go to previewsworld.com. I know there's other places. There's one, it's like Comic Poll List or something like that. There's some people go to Midtown Comics and look through the list, whatever. I use Previews World because they are the actual comic distributor that ship out the copies to people. Granted, digital only stuff that's on Comixology won't be on here, but most of that is not very good anyway. All right, so let's see. Let's go to comics, select publisher, Image. Image has Ascender, Criminal, Curse Words, East of West, Philadelphia. Here, I'll tell you what. I did read part of Philadelphia. I did start it. I wasn't able to finish it last night. I got called away to do something else, but I did start reading it, and it's actually pretty good. I expected it to be a little more heavy-handed in certain respects. It does deal with some racial issues, and I expected it to be the way most things are nowadays when they deal with that. It's instead of there being like nuances and personalities and people dealing with stuff, it's usually like, hey, look, these people are bad, these people are good, these people are mean, these people are all angels. That's typically how it seems to work out. And I was expecting some thread of that in there. It's actually a very well developed and nuanced story, and there's a lot of things going on with the main character and the way that he's dealing with aspects in his life. And there's a little bit, it's, Philadelphia, people are kind of mean sometimes. You're always going to run into some jerks and whatever, but it's not the heavy-handed allegorical story that I was expecting, because it's from Image Comics, and Image has been pretty bad with some of that stuff the past couple of years. And there's also monsters in it. There's also some, I think they're vampires in it, and they're not like. I always hate seductive vampires. I've never understood why they always have to be like, look into my eyes and you fall in love and whatever. These are like vicious, nasty, rip out your throat. If you've ever read, was it Redneck? Kind of similar in that way. Looking through Dark Horse, you got a Fight Club, you got Invisible Kingdom, Machine Gun Wizards. There's a Witchfinder. Man, Witchfinder. A lot of this, Hellboy Extended Universe. I love Hellboy. I've been a big Hellboy fan, and people are always like, "Oh, well, did you read BPRD?" No. Well, did you read, this, whatever? No, I don't. And I didn't read a lot of the Hellboy stuff because I'm not really a Hellboy fan as much as I'm a Mike Mignola fan. I love his artwork. I love the way he draws characters and puts in all the shadows and all of that stuff. I think it's really fantastic artwork. So I don't, like when they did the new movie, I didn't even see it, but apparently neither did most people. But I just, I'm just not motivated to read a bunch of that stuff because really, like I said, it's more about the artwork. It's about that mood. Now, there have been an occasional thing here and there where someone has a similar style artwork, or they find someone, Tommy Lee Edwards, or what is it? Matthew Smith? Is that right? I think that have a very simplistic, angular, a lot of dark space artwork that I like also, and so I will check occasionally some of those out, but not a whole lot. Let's see, we got IDW with Cobra Kai. We've got a Crow. Wow, they're still doing some Crow comics. Is James O'Barr nope, Tim Seeley, because Tim Seeley writes everything apparently nowadays. At some point, he gets a turn. We got a From Hell Master Edition, My Little Pony, and Sonic. So there's both my kids right there. Comic one for each of them. They both read all that stuff. Star Trek Picard. I do have a review copy of Star Trek Picard. I was going to try to read it last night when I was reading the other stuff, but again, got called away. But I plan on trying to get to that tonight, so maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about Star Trek Picard there. You got a new Transformers, Star Wars Adventures. Let's see, going down to DC, we've got Action Comics, which Invisible War Part 1. Bendis, John Romita Jr., for the first time since Avengers and Avengers vs. X-Men. It's all-out war on the streets of Metropolis. After this, at the end of this epic, there will be a huge change of the status quo in the world of Superman. Yeah. He's revealing his secret identity, which is dumb because Bendis can't actually tell a story within the constraints of a character. He always has to change the character or do something big like kill the character's wife or reveal the story or kill a parent or do something. He can't just take the frame that everybody works in and come up with a good story. He's got to change it somehow. Well, that's the only way to tell a good story, except it's not, because a lot of other people can do really good stories without having to change everything in the status quo. Let's see, we've got the Basket Full of Heads, which is from the, was it Joe Hill? Stephen King's son. It's part of his line, I believe. It's a Black Label. Yeah, Joe Hill, Hill House. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Joe Hill. He's done some stuff here and there that I thought was okay. The problem with horror comics is that you can't shock people with gore and blood and death in a comic book unless, like Walking Dead, you could do it, but you had to do 30 issues of getting to know a character to kill the character off, right? Like you can't just, it's not, here's a new person and their face got ripped off. Like it's a drawing of a person getting their face ripped off. It's not, it's you're not forgetting that it's a drawing of a person. It's not until someone actually has some sort of character depth that you relate to, and then the character builds, and then they get killed, and then you're like, oh my gosh, they killed off that character because it was a big character. Horror comics are difficult because the dread and the creep and the whatever that you want to put into that leads up to someone getting offed is hard to do on the printed page. It takes time. And doing a short miniseries that is going to have these horror elements, if you're not dealing with established characters, it's really tough. You have to really have sympathetic characters that people care about, not just a disturbing situation. And it's something it's tough to do in comics. We got a Batgirl, we got a Batman Beyond, Batman Creature of the Night, Batman vs. Ra's al Ghul, Books of Magic, Detective. Now, Detective, I have enjoyed quite a bit lately. Mr. Freeze story going on. Mr. Freeze actually brought his wife back through this big... I won't even get into it, but it's been a really entertaining story. It made Freeze look much worse as a villain, made his wife into a villain that's someone to worry about, and then is now kind of flipping the dynamic around, and really established a story. Like, okay, this is a story that breaks Peter Tomasi. Tomasi? Tomasai? Tomasi. Tomato? I don't know if it matters. But he's a guy who he took the constraints of the box of the character of Batman and didn't have to pull a Bendis, didn't have to pull a Tom King. Batman is still Batman, and he's very much Batman, and that did not change. Mr. Freeze is still Mr. Freeze. He didn't change the core of who Mr. Freeze was, but he built a story that made sense within the universe, and it works. And it's a great story. And it's, honestly, this is the type of thing that people need to take a look at. When you hear people complain about Tom King and the stuff that he's doing on Batman, read Detective, and you can see how it works. This is how you can tell a good, compelling story within the constraints of who the character is, without having to blow everything away in order to make room to tell something else. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to tell the story. And that was really good. We're getting a new Flash. Flash has been pretty good. I'm a few issues behind on Flash, but it's is this Joshua Williamson? Is that who's doing this? Yeah, Joshua Williamson. He's been writing it ever since it relaunched. And did he write before the relaunch? I can't remember. But he's his entire run has built. So it's tough. You can't really, as a new reader, pick one of these up and jump in and have everything make sense. You will have to do a little bit of searching, some Wikipedia, Google this, Google that to kind of figure out how some of these pieces fit together. But it's been a really good build of the character and building things along as it goes, and telling a good story. Freedom Fighters. This is another one I've been reading. I've enjoyed quite a bit. Alternate universe, alternate timeline, or Earth 7 or whatever it is. I forget what it is, but the fate of Earth X. Earth X is what it is. We got a Hellblazer relaunch, which, I don't know, pass. Justice League Dark, which I do not read. I just don't really care about the characters there. Looney Tunes, Martian Manhunter, Red Hood Outlaw. Red Hood Outlaw I have been reading, but the Year of the Villain has really kind of messed up the story that they were telling. So I don't really know how much I particularly care. Shazam. Shazam has been a good series, but again, I don't know if Year of the Villain's going to mess that up because he is one of the infected. But the story they've been doing, it's very much the comic universe, but it's moved around some pieces just enough that if you saw the movie and then you go pick up these issues, it works. Things might seem a little different here and there, but overall, if you go and watch the movie and you say, hey, that movie was good, and you go out and you pick up a copy of Shazam and you flip through it, your mind will connect the comic to the movie just fine. And I think that's great. That's the type of thing that needed to be done more, especially in the Marvel universe, with some of that stuff, trying to tie people in, because especially if you're trying to attract a casual crowd to a book that's not a high seller. Like, it's one thing if you've got a Batman or a Superman, but when you're dealing with like Shazam, or you're dealing with, like, even when Iron Man first launched, they kind of played around with it a little bit. to make it a little more like it. But the Avengers, like the Avengers movie came out, but the Avengers in the comic were completely different. It was a totally different group of people. So that's the type of thing. If done right, it can be good for the viewers to come in and see. And Shazam is that book. If you like that movie, you should be checking out that comic. It's worth looking into. It's good. We've got a Supergirl annual. It is her last day on Krypton before it exploded, and then deals with her being in one of the infected. So if you're into that whole Year of the Villain, the infected, whatever, there you go for that. We got the Dark Multiverse Infinite Crisis, which I tried reading that. I have a PDF of it that they sent out, and I tried reading through it, but I just couldn't. I don't know. Some of those Dark Multiverse are better than others, but for the most part, I don't know. Just meh. Terrifics has been good, although Terrifics is also being sidetracked by Year of the Villain stuff. Which is a shame because they had some really good stuff going in that comic, the way they jumped universes. So, whatever. Let's see. Moving on to Marvel. Avengers, Black Panther, Conan 2099. Oh my gosh. The one thing that cracks me up the most about Conan in the Marvel Universe is Conan was in the Marvel Universe. Then they lost the license. He left, went to Dark Horse, right? Was there for a long time. Now he's back in the Marvel Universe, and they've gone all out. Like, he's part of the Avengers now. He's part of 2099. What's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years? They lose the Conan license again. It goes somewhere else. And then suddenly, they go to print a trade or whatever. They can't do any of the Conan stuff anymore. You put Conan in the Avengers, you can't sell those Avengers comics anymore. Whoever gets it, IDW, maybe they can work it out because IDW is printing a lot of Marvel stuff that is too low in numbers for regular Marvel to sell, which is becoming more and more stuff every year. But if Conan goes to Oni Press, Lions Forge, whatever, and then suddenly Conan's there, they can't print a chunk of Avengers issues because Conan's in them. They would have to go through and redraw it and say it's Ares, or something, or it's just like those are gone. They're just not part of Marvel history anymore. It's just so weird to me the way they've just jumped right in with those. But anyway, that is what that is. 2099, and I'm really not interested in any of the 2099s. I'll be honest. I read a lot of them when they came out originally. Spider-Man was really the only one that I kind of got into, but then when they relaunched it, the 2 years ago, whatever it was, I tried reading it and it was just bad, and I just could not get into it. Fallen Angels, Fantastic Four Grand Design, Fantastic Four Negative Zone, one of Reed Richards' greatest discoveries. Is this a reprint or is this a new thing? What is this? Mike Carey, Ryan North. Okay, so this is just a special one shot. It looks like, hey, let's put out another Fantastic Four book instead of figuring out some way to tell the story in the regular stuff. Fine. All right, so Negative Zone, Ghost Spider, which my son reads. He likes Spider-Man stuff in general, but he doesn't like the current Spider-Man comic, but he likes a lot of the tie-in stuff. So anytime they do Spider-Verse, he likes those. Ghost Spider, I don't know, anything that's going to be, and Spider-Man Noir, actually. He likes Spider-Man Noir. That's like his favorite version of Spider-Man, but not actually the current Spider-Man. It's funny. Invisible Woman, Ironheart, New Mutants, Punisher 2099. At least there's a Ron Lim cover, so you've got a little bit of history. If that's the variant, Ron Lim variant cover. That's whatever. All right, we've got where'd we go? We got Scream, Curse of Carnage. Boy, that Absolute Carnage, all that stuff. That's gone over well. Absolute Carnage has done really good. It sold a lot of copies, had a lot of reprints. It's done good. The tie-in stuff, not so much. Dr. Aphra, We got an Uncanny X-Men 266 Facsimile Edition. That's the first Gambit. So those who are Gambit fans probably want to grab that. Valkyrie Jane Foster. Valkyrie Jane Foster. That, boy, that's a series that just tanked. Marvel even sent out extra copies of the first 2 issues to retailers so that they could say that they had higher sales. They could go, look, we had 12,000 people buying Valkyrie Jane Foster #1. Well, 6,000 copies were ordered, and they just sent everybody extra. If you ordered 10, you got 20. You just got double your order for free. So then they did. And then the second one, I think you got an extra half. So if you ordered 10, you got an extra 5. And then starting with 3, they didn't give extra copies out. And so now you look at the sales numbers, they're pretty abysmal. We got Venom, which is a tie-in for Absolute Carnage. And of course, Venom has been very big for the past couple of years. And I've got them. I haven't read it in a while. His son showed up and did some stuff, and I don't know. I just kind of it was a lot more fun earlier on, and then when they did the whole thing where they had the whole Venom planet, I thought that was kind of cool to kind of talk about where he came from and kind of explain some of that stuff. But then it went on too long, and then the big Venom demon god came and big dragon. He turned into a giant dragon, and whatever. I just kind of lost interest in it. You got X-Force #2 and Yondu #2, which is another series that just has not taken off. That's another one that it's not the character from the movies, and people were complaining when the first issue came out. They were like, "Oh, I thought this is the guy from Guardians of the Galaxies." Well, it's the character that character is based on, but it's not that character. People were not excited. So that's gonna be it from Marvel. Dynamite. We got Betty Page. The Kiss Zombies. Those are the Knights in Satan's Service, if you didn't know. Red Sonja, Vengeance of Vampirella. Boom Studios has Angel, Lumberjanes, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so nothing for me there. And then we get the random comics. So the way Diamond Comics breaks down this stuff, you've got your top tier companies that get their own little sections, and then you've got the section at the bottom where it's just everybody else. Their catalog is set up the same way. So now that you get down to here, let's see, we got some Archies. Archie and Me. We got John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction Redhead #1. Huh. #1 of 6? Is that what this is? I've heard from some people that these aren't bad. That the John Carpenter stuff that's been coming out in these comics, they're not the greatest, but they do kind of have that John Carpenter feel to them. I guess he had input on some of the characters and the backgrounds, the situations, whatever, to kind of give that a jump start, give it a direction, and they've been okay. Casper, my daughter loves these Casper comics, and it's weird because the Casper comics are there'll be maybe one new story that's 6 pages, and then the rest is reprints of old stuff, and it's reprints from the 80s, from the 70s, from the 60s, and she loves these reprints. The Pink Panther, Casper, Richie Rich, man, I don't even know what else, but she loves them, and she loves looking at the artwork and how it changes, and some of them you can tell they just took the old newsprint pages and scanned them in. You can kind of see some bleed through from the page on the other side, and so she loves to kind of look through and try to figure out what's happening on the other side of them. It's really interesting the way that she gets into it, and I like the fact that she enjoys reading the older stuff as well as the new stuff. That's pretty cool too. Goth Young Lovers at War. I'm gonna pass on that one. Last Stop. The Non-Stop imprint. Okay. Well, if you've been reading Scout Comics Non-Stop imprint, there's a new book coming for that. Gutter Magic, Maul, Leave on the Light. A lot of horror comics coming out right now, which I'm guessing they were shooting for Halloween with some of these and didn't quite make it. Monster Men of Soul Beast from American Mythology Studios. All right. Monster Planet, Ogres #1 from Source Point Press. That might be good. Plot from Vault Comics. That's been selling okay. Psycho List. From Black Box. Psycho List. That sounds familiar. Why is that familiar? I don't know. Looks like it's FBI agents or something. Whatever. Relics of Youth, Resonant, Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty. Pass. Second Coming, that book's garbage. Space Riders, Vortex of Darkness from Black Mask. That's... Oh, I remember. Okay, yeah, when the first issue of that came out, everybody was like, woo! This Space Riders thing, like, this is a big deal, whatever. And then, issue 2 came out, nobody cared. It was I don't know. It was a weird thing. Everybody was scavenging for that first issue. You could sell it on eBay for like $20 if you found it, $30 sometimes, but now nobody cares. There's a tarot, Touching Evil from Source Point Press. An attorney is given a curse from a mysterious prisoner that allows her to kill anyone instantly with a touch of her hand, but only if they're evil. Oh, actually, that sounds interesting. Touching Evil. Dan Daughtry? Let's see, who is this? Dan Daughtry. He's a State Farm insurance agent. Okay, well, that's not the right guy, I don't think. Comics Grinder. Let's see. Beardo. Is he the guy that does Beardo? Oh, no. He's the guy who does... maybe not. Is he the one... Oh, man, that's too bad. If he's the guy I'm thinking of, he did this one comic a couple years ago. It was terrible. It was about... Well, let me see if it's the same guy. Maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. Maybe Beardo's not the book I was thinking of. Let's see. Rotten. Okay, it is Rotten. All right, yeah. He did a book called Rotten, and it started out okay, and then it just turned into straight garbage after like the 5th or 6th. It became like this... like parody of celebrities, and it was dumb. It had so much promise when it started. The first collection was great. The second trade came out, and I read it. I was like, what is this? Like, this is supposed to be this thing about zombies, and instead he's turned into like this virtue signaling. Well, I threw it in the trash. I threw it away. I don't do that a lot with comics. If comics have water damage is the one thing that I don't deal with, because it's a liquid and you don't know where it came from, and that's something I don't do. And if I've got comics and they got water damage, they're out. Yeah, it can be torn on the cover, someone can have drawn on it, whatever. I'll still keep it in my collection. Water, I throw away, and the volume 2 of that right in the trash. So that's a shame. I'm going to pass on that because here's the problem. Even if that book is good, my expectation now is that it's going to be bad because of the other stuff that I've read. Like, that has killed my expectation of the book is that it's going to turn terrible because of the other stuff he did. All right, Unbound, Van Helsing versus Dracula's Daughter. Vark Wars. Oh, okay. Cerebus the Aardvark. That's been some interesting stuff the past couple months. The way he's been doing the Cerebus the Aardvark updates. Those books they've been different. They're not for everybody. I can definitely say that. The way he's done that the last few years, because I think he got sick. And it's also man, now I can't think of the guy's name. The guy who does Cerebus the Aardvark, Dave Sim. Dave Sim is one of those people that he's definitely had problems in his life. He had some very real mental issues for a while. I know he had a relationship that went bad, and it made him very paranoid. He had to get, I believe he got some counseling maybe at one point for some of this stuff. He's done some stuff in his work in the past with Cerebus that was very very uncomfortable to read through. Stuff that was mean towards women and just stuff, and it's him, dealing with personal stuff, and you can argue like, okay, whatever, it's art, right? It's the process, but you can't look at everything he's done and say it's all fantastic, it's all great. He's definitely a comics legend. His artwork is fantastic. He has done some great stories. He has done some really interesting stuff, but you never really can tell sometimes whether or not something's going to end up. Is he playing it for laughs? Is he playing it over the top for effect? Or does he actually believe it? Right? So that's questionable sometimes. And finally, Woven Heart from Man Cave Studios. Woven Heart number 2. And this one's... the first one got a lot of attention. They sent out advanced copies. And I've got it sitting on a stack. I never got around to it. But they sent out copies to people so people would talk about it. It got a little more attention than it might have otherwise gotten. But the question is whether or not issue 2 can maintain any of that excitement. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how a smaller company, how they're able to do, if it's able to continue on with some of that stuff. So, all right. So there we go. That's about a half hour or so talking about comics coming out this week. Again, if there's anything specific you want to talk about, any particular comics or comic creators or storylines or whatever, you can go ahead and email me, dirt@popculture.com or dirt@thepopc.net or dirt@dirtmound.com. Any of those, you can get through to me there. Leave some comments. If you can go to the website, you can leave some comments there. You can leave them here on YouTube, whatever. I'll go look for them. I'm planning to do one of these shows tomorrow. Wednesday, probably not. And then maybe again Thursday. No, Thursday's Thanksgiving. Probably not Thursday. So Friday. And then Friday, Black Friday, probably do something there. And my son really wants to go out shopping on Black Friday, so we may go out, pick some stuff up, see what happens there. So anyway, that's that. I think that's going to do it. That's good enough for today's video, but this is the format. This is the idea going forward. So if you're listening to this as a podcast on Podbean or iTunes, hey, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. And, like I said, we'll do these semi-regularly. They will be more often, but not necessarily every day. And then those of you watching the video here on YouTube, do not report me for making kids videos. Thank you very much. But again, anything else you guys want to talk about, leave some feedback. And that's going to do it for me. And I'll see you next time.